That's right. That's right.
Still not done.
They have made big gains, though, that's for sure.
Oh, that's good.
Hmm.
Live stream is commenced.
Are we waiting for Councillor Ainsley?
We
Yes.
are. I'm just waiting to get in touch with them.
Great,
It
thanks.
should be very shortly.
Okay. There we go.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hey,
Hello.
Councillor.
Good afternoon, Councillor.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Councillor Ainsley.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Good job.
It's glad to have another one done.
Yeah.
My wife's happy to know I'm still gainfully employed.
I think you should lend your services to the Republicans south of the border.
Yeah.
I was going to make a comment. Yeah.
Yeah.
He won by more votes than a lot of them.
That's right. I don't know what happened last night.
Well, as I said as a reporter a little while ago, they were talking about the red wave, and I said it was more like a red stain, ketchup stain on the kitchen wall.
That's right.
Alrighty. It's 4:02. I'm going to call this meeting to order. And land acknowledgement. My apologies. I will get it in. Oh, thank you. We honor the land we are on, which has been the site of human activity since time immemorial in the traditional territories. It is the traditional territories of the Huron-Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit River First Nations. Ontario is covered by 46 treaties and other agreements and is home to many Indigenous nations from across Turtle Island, including the Inuit and the Métis people. The board also acknowledges that Toronto is covered by Treaty Number 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. These treaties and other agreements, including the One Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, are agreements to peacefully share and care for the land and its resources. Other Indigenous nations, Europeans, and newcomers were invited into this covenant in the spirit of respect, peace, and friendship. We are mindful of broken covenants, and we strive to make this right with the land and with each other. And I also have the African ancestral acknowledgement. I will read, we're all treaty people. Many of us having come here as settlers, immigrants, newcomers in this generation or generations past. We would also like to acknowledge those who came here forcibly, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Therefore, we honor and pay tribute to the ancestors of African origin and descent. Thank you very much. Next, I have approval of the public agenda. If I could have somebody move it.
I so move, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Warren, seconded by Brenda. All in favor? Carried. Are there any conflict of interest among the committee members? Seeing none, I need a motion to approve the public minutes of the committee meeting on September 14th, 2022. Moved by
Mr.
Brenda,
Chairman.
seconded by Warren.
Warren.
All in favor? Carried. I need a motion to approve the minutes of our meeting of September 14th, 2022 for the closed session.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Warren, seconded by Brenda. All in favor? That carries. Next is our action items list. Does anybody have any concerns or questions about the action items list?
All is good.
Brenda?
No, I think I'm fine because some of them we're going to be reporting today. So yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Can I have a motion to receive the action items list? Brenda, seconded by Warren. All in favor?
Aye.
That carries. Our next item is our CEO update. Mr. Hunter, your turn.
Yeah, through the chair. Thank you. And my verbal report is an update is brief for today, and really wanting to just focus and provide an update on the really I'll call them the corporate staff, and where we are currently
All right.
with
Yeah.
that hiring. And we had just as a bit of refresher and recall, we had brought to the board in June of 2022 and received approval for an additional of 20 FTEs in the corporate staff. And just we were, and as I had shared previously, we were well into that process, particularly from the hiring of the director positions. And in the we're going to be starting the second round of interviews and just learning of the challenges facing the City of Toronto from a financial perspective. That process was put on hold, and we did make adjustments to that interim strategy to carry us through until we get approval on our 2023 budget, so we know definitively the positions that we are hiring for when we go out to find candidates and then ultimately make offers. So just wanting to report that we are kind of still on the hold position as it relates to that, and would want to recognize that the interim staff really have been doing an incredible job to keep things moving forward with all the projects and work that we have initiated, and carrying that through, as I said, until we have our final whatever the approval is. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Any questions of Tom by the committee members?
So in other words, Tom, nothing's falling through the cracks in the meantime.
Not that I'm aware of, right? I mean, I really a real focus on with the team, reviewing our plans and the work. So not I think it's really it has been going well, all things considered.
Good, thank you.
So just a quick, are we actually losing positions because of this budgetary process issue, or is it just we're rethinking them and what's the net effect of the budget considerations?
Yeah, I think Brenda, considering this is a public session, I think if the committee
Sure.
would more detail, we could go in camera on that.
Okay, that's fine.
When we go into camera, we can cover it there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Any other questions or concerns for Tom? Can I have a motion to receive his report?
Just a quickie, any update on the renovation? If you could just give us.
Okay, yes, just at the 423 Yonge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Our
Yeah, so
office space, yeah.
right. The last time I was in there, they were drywalling, so it is
Right.
moving along, and in fact, we received some of the IT equipment. So yes, things are moving along. They got going again, and they the other day they were choosing to jackhammer when I was trying to do a television interview, but other than that, but that was good. So it's moving along. Thanks.
Okay.
Jackhammering shows active progress.
Exactly. They didn't
Or
choose the best
dysfunction.
day. They didn't choose the best day, but at least it was happening.
Okay. Other questions or concerns? Can I have a motion to receive Tom's report?
So move,
Brenda?
Mr. Chair.
So move.
Seconded by Warren. All in favor? Carried. Next, we have committee meetings. Verbal report. Mr. Hunter, you're back.
Yes, through the
You never
chair.
got time to get off the stage.
That's okay. That's okay. Janelle, if you could just put up the page. And just once again, for background, we are preparing for 2023 and want to confirm our committee and board dates. And when we're just looking for, to prepare and outline the schedule, bringing it to this committee to have to really view what we are proposing for our schedule, and then that can be taken to the board for approval. And we have the three committees, so the Quality Tenant Engagement Committee, Corporate Governance, Human Resources, and Audit, Finance, and Risk Committees. Those are the three committees of the board. And generally, we're looking at board meetings every 2 months. And so in 1 month prior would be the three committee meetings, and then in the subsequent month, the board meeting. So you can see here's January and February. And just what we also wanted to show, and here's March, April, but just wanting to show with these dates, the work that we are doing in preparation for each one of these meetings. So that with the contribution, the agenda review, the deadline for the AODA, and then and our commitment to post. And so, it's one thing to have those, as those dates set, but there is a lot of pre-work leading up to those. And so you can just keep scrolling, Janelle. That'd be great. And then we have the May, June, and this just repeats through what would be those 5 meetings of the year. And so this is based on keeping active with information to the board, recommendations required from the board, and also with the resources of our current team. What we are, this is what we are proposing for the board for consideration, for questions, and then looking to for the board to approve so that we can get these into people's calendars for the 2023 year. So I'll open it up for any kind of questions or comments.
Brenda?
As you know, I've expressed my disagreement with this. Could someone explain why they think it should be every 2 months for board meeting instead of monthly? I really haven't had a full explanation as to why we're reducing frequency in what is just barely going into our second year of newness and transition and a whole lot of work.
I can start, and then if anybody wants to add. So first of all, my understanding with the work leading up to the starting the corporation in June, there just was I guess kind of phenomenal work in those 6 months leading up to that, and the requirement to get that work done. Also, and so when we're looking in my familiarity, from the governance perspective, it has been every 2 months, quarterly, that meetings are held. And I think also when we look at the requirements for things like the AODA preparation and proper agenda review and preparing for the meetings, I'm not even certain, when we look at the schedule and what we need to do, how the team can accomplish that with monthly meetings. It would almost be impossible for us from a perspective to keep that moving forward if we were to compress that to every month. And I also would, my thought is, I think every month when we get more into a steady state as an organization, that there would be repetition to be doing it,
Sure.
doing this every month. So I understand that, with the last couple of board meetings, there was a lot of information, and even verbal reports and information and kind of written reports would have been more practical and probably easier to have dealt with. And so we do have to work at the type and the content of the report. So based on those factors for us, for the team, and I think for the board, we are proposing the current schedule.
I'm respectful of the staff and time requirements. I can appreciate that, but I think I'll just make my point, and because I know it's not shared by everyone. I think with a newly emerging organization that has a very high profile in what we're doing, and further on in our meeting, we'll be discussing the other mandate and work plan issues. And I just think for this upcoming year, I can see we could review it after that, but for this upcoming year, which I'm still considering our period of transition, I think it behooves us to meet more regularly. And, you know, we can wind that down next year because we'll be in a 2-year position and of maturity. But I think there's issues of accountability and transparency and accountability that kind of get lost when you squeeze everything together every 2 months with very, very full agenda, very limited time for discussion. And my concern, particularly if we start empowering the committees to be decision makers, which is another issue, it just means fewer and fewer opportunities for us to really fulfill our mandate, which is accountability and review and governance. And I don't see how you can do that when we don't have sufficient time to look at policy implications and discuss the implications of decisions we make. So I like it put to a vote, and I will express my vote as a negative because I want it on paper that my position is to disagree with this.
Reid, I see your electronic hand.
Yeah,
Thank you, Brenda, by the way.
Thanks, Chair. And yeah, I mean, I think I'd like to just kind of find the right balance here, right? Because I mean, I think you know we want the committees, the subcommittee to do the deliberations that they ought to do before things come to committee. So my view is that if we get the subcommittee to perhaps quote unquote function a bit more effectively and deliberate in some of those issues before they come to the board meeting, then we could potentially, minimize the length of time we spend on specific issues. So we're not delegating necessarily, but I think the reason why we create these subcommittees is to have them quote unquote empowered and be able to fully canvass conversations and issues before they come to the board. And you know, I think the schedule that Tom is proposing as well, I don't think precludes us from having extra meetings if we deem that to be appropriate to address any emerging or urgent consideration. And then the third issue that I placed before the board, Mr. Chair, as well, has to do with the administrative challenge associated with having a board meeting every single month. And the length of time staff would have to spend doing that rather than sort of focusing on their core business. So the governance, the transparency and accountability pieces, I think can all be accomplished if we were to tweak the way we deliberate on issues at the committee level, and then be a bit more strategic and focus on those issues as they come up for discussion at the board level. And as Tom said, there are some best practices I think we can adopt to deal with that. And you know, most boards, this is the cycle where you have committee 1 month and you have the board the next month. So those are my considerations. I'm not averse to trying this and see how it works. And if, to Brenda's point, if it doesn't work, then I think we can always revisit it. But in the interest of allowing staff and giving them the time to prepare and put together agendas and do the deliberations we expect from them, I think we need to give them the amount of time to be able to fully develop and canvass these issues before they come to the board.
Okay, thank you, Fareed. Warren, do you have any comments or concerns?
I fully understand where Brenda's coming from. She's made a powerful argument. I very much appreciate it. It's a question of balancing, obviously, balancing between, as Fareed notes, the make sure that staff have the opportunities to do their core business. At the same time, how do we exercise appropriate oversight?
Yeah,
I'm very comfortable with what Tom is proposing. I think I would just hate it if we just burden staff with having to do briefing notes for monthly meetings. That would just
yes, and I've been in those positions.
Yeah,
so
we
I know
all have.
how awful
So,
they are.
you know,
Yeah.
we all know how much work it takes to prepare for a committee meeting
Yes.
or a board meeting, and I appreciate where we are in the evolution of the organization, but I would like to try, as Tom has suggested.
Okay.
And I think our committees have been doing, good work. I don't think there's been any issue that they've not deliberated, but I think, I still feel this sense that we're just rubber stamping things that are presented to us, particularly downloaded from Toronto Community Housing. And I don't think we've had fulsome discussion on these things. We were told we had to do these because of time constraints. And I'm still looking forward to when will we be discussing, partnerships and how we hold them accountable, and lots of other policy related, which we're not getting to.
Yeah.
We're just approving
Yeah.
existing practices, and we're delaying even our strategic plan because of whatever reasons we're delaying it for. And I think personally that should be a priority area. And because that will then govern and direct ourselves in the organization. So I am appreciative of the staff burden, having been in those positions before. But then that then speaks maybe to different staffing or additional staffing. I mean, that's why I'm asking this question, Tom, of you earlier about the number of staff we may or may not be able to get access to. But if there's a way we can release the burdens on some people, and perhaps that may be a staffing issue more so than designing your governance structure around limited staff time. I don't believe you should do that.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to say I'm supportive of what Tom is suggesting in terms of the meeting structure. I think that having, the meetings every 2 months, we have the committee meetings in between. I think that gives us a fulsome opportunity to discuss issues that come up, whether it's at the committee or if it needs to be, reviewed and further discussion at the board meeting. I also think, we need to take into account the amount of time that staff need for prep work, both for committee meetings and the board meetings. I just don't, at this point, I don't see it as being practical to be having board meetings every month. Reid, I saw your electronic hand again.
Yeah, just a final point to Brenda's, and I mean, Brenda's point is well taken. I don't think the board or the committee wants to be rubber stamping whatever comes forward from staff. So I think we should have the ability as a board, and certainly, I mean, I would take this opportunity to encourage board members to either, defer items that they feel they didn't have enough time to discuss, subject to timelines and stuff like that. But certainly, I don't think we can not do our due diligence and exercise our fiduciary responsibility because of the timeline. So I think, I would, all the principles that Brenda mentioned, I respect them and I would adhere to them. I'm just suggesting that we give this a try and see how it works, and we can revisit it if we need to.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, so we have a motion to receive the committee's report from Tom. Brenda, did you want a recorded vote or?
Yeah, I would like, because I feel very strongly about this, and I think we're going to get our ass bit at some point. So I just want, I really mean that. And I think there's risk issues here as well. And we got to be on top of these things, people, in this upcoming year. And so, yes, I'd like to have a recorded vote.
Okay. Those in favor of receiving the report?
Aye.
I'll let that be myself, Warren, and Fareed. Opposed? Opposed is Brenda, and receipt of the committee meetings report passes. Next, we have our governance work plan priorities. Where's Mr. Coffey? There he is. Grant, you're up.
Good afternoon, everybody, and Councillor Ainsley, and to the chair. Before you today, we have a report very much related to the conversation we just had in context about the development of governance work plan priorities. If the committee recalls, at the last meeting, Mary, who's on the call with us today, brought forward a presentation, and there was a discussion at that meeting with regards to the development of work plan priorities for governance for 2023. Before you today is a summary report from that feedback that has been created, and the intent of this report is to take this forward to a board orientation session in December of this year, next month, to be scheduled still, where there'll be an opportunity for a more in-depth conversation about these priorities with all board members. And the intent is to join that board orientation session together with the interim strategic directions conversation as well. And this particular topic, obviously, that we just went through is an element that's included in the conversation around priorities, but there are other areas as well. There's a presentation that is attached to this report that has been prepared that summarizes a proposal around the priorities for 2023 that would be used as the input for that workshop or orientation session in December. I'll open it up for any questions. I wasn't going to walk through the presentation today. Hopefully committee members have had a chance to review that. And then we'd have this more in-depth conversation with the whole board in December.
So Grant, what's presented here is the background discussion and then by each section of the, and then you said something about there's something attached to this in terms of.
Yes, so through the chair, Brenda,
yeah.
So, in the report, there's an attachment which is a presentation.
Oh yes, I see. Yeah, here we are.
And in that presentation, each of the four main areas that were brought forward in the different topics that Mary went through are highlighted some proposed recommendations for each. These are the elements that would be taken to that board orientation session where we'd have an opportunity for all board members to participate in a conversation about this, and also a little more time potentially to go through it as well.
And so this proposed governance work plan 2023, that's the timeline in terms of first quarter, second quarter. And
yes, so if you turn to slide, it's page, slide 26 in the materials.
I'm on 30, page 26. Sorry, I have these vision problems now. What's on?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is a summary
yes,
view
yes.
of the proposed work plan associated with each of the four themes on the left-hand side.
Right.
And these are a subset of activities associated with the questions that were discussed at the last meeting. So this is the focus in on what we would actually talk about with the board in the orientation session. And you'll see that, and some of these will tie into things we've already talked about and other items on today's agenda. But in broad strokes, the idea here is to provide the committee an update on the outcome of the conversation from the last committee meeting and our proposed next steps to take it to this board orientation.
So will we be discussing some of this today, or we're going to defer everything to December?
It's open for feedback today. If there's anything that the committee would like to discuss with regards to these proposed governance work plan priorities as captured from the previous meeting, I wasn't necessarily looking to have an in-depth discussion today, but it's open to questions or comments on this for sure.
Okay, thank you then. Yes, I have a couple of questions, but I'll defer right now.
I think you still have the floor, Brenda, if you want to ask them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just trying to think, well, in terms of this slide in front of us here, it's slide 30 on my handout, slide 26 on yours. We were told we would be seeing the lease agreement and operating agreement that will come to the full board.
So maybe I'll let Tom address that particular question. If that's
okay.
Tom.
Just mute there, the chair to Brenda. So the when we have an update for you on the lease agreement in the closed session today,
yeah,
and the transition agreement. So we can follow that up there, but it could be a more at the session that Grant is proposing in December. There could be a more robust discussion around where that is heading at the present time.
Okay. And will we have more detailed materials before us for that December orientation meeting? I mean, these are broad brushstroke statements, but will we have more handouts and more material to review for that December orientation meeting?
Through the chair. So the intent is to work from the materials in front of you today
Yeah.
and as the basis for that session in December. If there are additional materials that would help with the discussion, certainly open to having some feedback on that here. But this is the package we're looking to work from for that session.
I only mention the details because I find it's best for consultation and discussion that you have actual practical things in front of you to focus the discussion. Otherwise, they just become very ethereal discussions, right? So this not to generate extra work, but I just think if we're going to talk about, for example, risk management, well, what is included in that so that we can be fully informed with the range of what that incorporates and our legal responsibility, fiduciary responsibility on these matters. You know, I just think a little more detail would help the process
So
and
through
help
the
our decision making as well.
So through the chair, Brenda, what we'll do is we'll take this back in the context of what you're suggesting, and look through these materials and this presentation and see if there are particular artifacts or reference points that would provide additional information to help support the conversation. We will have some artifacts and reference points we can use in some cases. In other places, they may have to be developed.
Okay, because I'm looking at your
Fine.
September 7th. You know, this is the Appendix A, and we had that presented to us before. I believe, yeah. You know, governance foundations, governance structures, and there were good questions here for discussion, issues for discussion. And I didn't know whether there were some answers already drafted for that, or whether that was the questions for discussions in our December orientation. That's what I'm trying to get my head around. I don't know if anyone can answer that.
So through the chair, and Mary, maybe help me out here if you want. I know this is something you're helping us to prepare for as well.
Yeah.
I believe that the intent would be that we would still have access to those questions that help facilitate the conversation back in September. So
Yeah.
they would not be lost. However, so we would still use those in the broader context of ensuring that each of the four themes is being looked at. And then we would look through the specific recommended items on the work plan for feedback as well, which came out of that earlier conversation, and some other, consideration around how things have sort of evolved since the previous time this was discussed. In 2021 even. And Mary, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
Sure, I can just add quickly. So the upfront slides are a reflection, I think, of the discussion in this committee the last time on what this group thought were the priorities.
Yeah.
And there were, as you know, a lot more details and detailed questions that the board may want to discuss a little bit further. So the idea was to take the discussion from last time, crystallize that, but give the broader questions for discussion to the workshop.
Okay.
So all of that will be there, and I would think that the board members might want to discuss some of the broader questions the way the committee did in the first place. And the only other comment I would make is that the purpose of the conversation is for the board to give direction on what your priorities are for the following year, not to resolve the issues and do the work. Because there is a ton of work behind almost all of these things to bring forward to the board for their consideration.
Yeah, very much so.
It is a priority setting exercise and an exercise for the board to give direction to the staff on where to put our attention for your consideration throughout next year.
Yeah, with the input you get at the orientation session.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
No, because I found that your outline in the September handout, the possible issues, possible gaps, I thought those were good questions that could guide us. Is this going to be a facilitated orientation meeting? Like, is it just internal staff that will be leading us in our December orientation meeting?
So through the chair, it'll be internal staff together with Mary,
okay.
who will help facilitate this together with us. Yes.
Who will facilitate? I didn't hear you, sorry.
Internal staff together with Mary.
With Mary, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So through the chair as well. I mean, I was going to kind of echo what the sentiments expressed by Mary, because I see this very much as a priority setting exercise and
Yeah.
helping the staff to get from the board some guidance on where to put the emphasis. It might be helpful though, Grant and Mary, to Brenda's point, if on the governance pieces in particular, if you were to highlight a few best practices. So in addition to the questions that is being asked, and I know Mary, you know, when you did the initial presentation, some of this was mentioned as well. So while you don't want to direct the board to get the board to sort of echo what might be out there, but it might be helpful on some of the governance piece in particular to articulate what some of the best practices are in the industry. The other point I would make is I think this is a really good document. It does provide a really comprehensive overview of what the board need to do, and it cover different aspects of our responsibilities and obligation. I particularly like the orientation piece because I think that's to me that's a piece that's missing, because coming into a board, an important board with the kind of responsibility we have, that's an important piece that I think we need to focus on. I mean, I'll speak to this perhaps a bit more when we get to the training and development piece. But the recommendation would be, Mary, if you could, and Grant, if there is a way of keeping in mind what are some of the best practices to help the conversation, that might be helpful. But as it is, I think it's a very useful document.
Yeah, there were good points raised in it. That's why I was wondering about it. Yeah.
So thank you for that feedback, and we will incorporate that into how we bring this forward for that session we're talking.
Okay, thank you then. And do we have a date yet for that December orientation?
We through the chair, we do not have a date yet, but we are actively working on getting some options, and hopefully we'll have that firmed up fairly soon.
And our board meeting that date's been chosen as well. So we have to keep that in mind, I guess, too.
Yes, through the chair. Yes, our next board meeting is November 29th. It would be after that.
Oh, okay. November 29th. Okay. Thank you then.
Okay. Other questions or concerns?
Looking forward to it.
All right. I have a motion on the floor to recommend for information the governance work plan.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Warren, seconded by Fareed. All in favor? And that carries. Next, I have a motion by myself to move into closed session. All in favor? Or I guess a seconder, Warren?
Seconded.
All in favor? That carries.
Live stream will be ending momentarily.
Okay.